And we're ready to cook our pasta. I'm going to give you two different recipes, both of them really simple and both absolutely delicious. First one, sage and lemon butter, and the second one, smoked salmon cream sauce. We'll start with the sage and lemon butter. I've brought a great big pot of water to the boil, so this is boiling nicely. So now I'm going to add just a small handful of rough salt into there. Give it a quick stir to dissolve. There we go. And then I'll put the pasta in. Now this needs to boil for exactly 3 minutes. I would suggest that you make a couple extra and try them because everyone's taste is different. You may want it a bit softer, you may want it a bit harder. So to me, 3 minutes works just perfectly. So these go in there. Don't crowd your pot. I mean, I'm sure you know that already. Make sure that it doesn't stop boiling completely when you put the pasta in. Here I'm doing just one portion for myself. There we go. I suggest that you boil your pasta before you start making the sauce. If you're a professional, you will be able to gauge, or if you cook a lot, you'll be able to gauge when the butter will be brown and the pasta will be ready at the same time. But I wouldn't run the risk. So let's boil this first. And once it's done, we'll take it out. It will happily wait a while. So this one, we're making our sage and lemon butter sauce first. Boiling of the pasta, of course, is the same. Our pasta is ready and we can take it out of the water. I like to use a slotted spoon to take it out and not pour the water over the pasta because sometimes you have a little bit of flour left in the water and at the bottom of it, and you're going to be pouring it over the pasta. To me, not a great idea. So this is cooked rather nicely. Try and put this into a bowl that is slightly flat or onto a plate or a tray, because what you don't want to pile the pasta up and then it starts to stick to each other. But this will happily wait while we make our sauce. So in order to make the sauce, we need sage. So I'm going to go to the garden and get some sage. Right, I'm a good cook, but I am not a great gardener. So as you can see, my marjoram has died. Fortunately, we're doing a little bit better with the sage. So I'm going to take fresh sage from my own garden here. There we go. And that should be enough for us. Let's start cooking. So we got our sage. Now we just have to pluck this. I'm going to keep a couple of leaves to decorate my dish with. So this all, the leaves are a bit small. You can buy these hopefully in the supermarket. If you can't find it, you can replace the sage with another herb. You could use oregano. The other one I really like is rosemary. But for this particular recipe, try not to use dried herbs because it's not going to work so well. So here we are. The other ingredients that we need for this is a bit of butter. This is some homemade butter. That's why it looks a bit homemade. In another video, I'm going to teach you how to make your own butter, but that's another story. And then we need a bit of lemon, the juice of half a lemon. So I'm just going to cut my lemon. There we go. I think, yep, we're fine there, not to miss. And then we'll cut this. And get our butter ready. There we are. Pan, and we're ready to cook. I've heated up my pan. Now I'm going to cut a nice big piece of butter. If you think it's too much, you're wrong. So we'll just melt the butter. Whoops. Try not to scratch your pan. My spoon. The idea is to get a brown butter. So it's really a very simple recipe. We brown the butter, we put our leaves in. We'll keep one or two for decoration. There we go. Whoops. Right. So that's going to take a short while to go brown. If you've not done this before, I would recommend that you do it slowly, because the butter will turn brown and then it will burn. So if you're on very high heat, it goes faster. So try to be on a medium heat. Take your time, your pasta will wait. I'm sure you've given your guests a drink, so they'll be all right. So first it will foam up, and after it's foamed, it will stop foaming and it will turn brown. When we put the leaves in, that will cool it down a little bit and it will stop it from burning. Not forever, but for a while. Here we go. I'm going to turn the heat all the way down now. You see, it's starting to brown. And we're ready. Just about. You can smell a beautiful nutty aroma. Oof. This is going to crackle and pop, but it is not dangerous. Wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful. I put my pasta right in there. It's really dark brown and wonderful. And I'm just going to toss this pasta in there. I'm going to add a tiny little bit of salt to it. You don't need a lot of salt because you have a lemon. So, whoops, that didn't go into the pan, did it? There we are. Turn the heat up. And there we go. That's our recipe. That's all we need to do. Ooh. Isn't that beautiful? That is truly good. I've got my plate ready. I got a nice old-fashioned plate here to put it into. So that goes in there. That is one generous portion. I kept some in the pan. Okay. Decorate that with a bit of sage. Here we go. 1 and 2. Slightly off center. Stuff this back in there. And here we are. So I've decorated this with a couple of sage leaves, and here we go. Our old-fashioned plate, really nice portion of very simple lemon ravioli with sage and lemon butter sauce. Okay, the all-important taste test. Let's see how this is turned out here. Ooh, look at that. Wonderful. Oh my God. I know you're not supposed to like your own food quite so much, but this is pretty good. Now, another great thing about this ravioli, you can make a larger batch and freeze them. They freeze really well. Put them flat on a tray, individually, not all together, like one not touching the next. Freeze it quickly. After it's frozen solid, you can put it in a bag. Nothing's going to happen to it. Do not defrost. Yeah? You put it straight from the freezer into the boiling water. If your water then gets too cold and starts boiling, don't worry too much. Give it an extra minute to get it to be perfectly cooked, and that's about it. Now, I'm not going to stop eating this. I'm actually going to eat the whole plate. Wonderful. Let's start on the second recipe. We're going to make a light cream sauce with smoked salmon, and I want to add a little bit of rosemary to it. So let's go to the garden downstairs and get some fresh rosemary. We're very lucky. We have a wonderful little herb garden in our apartment block. So I've just come down to cut a little bit of rosemary for our second recipe. You see the wonderful rosemary bush we have here? It grows and grows and grows. So I don't need much. I'm just going to take one little sprig like that, and that's good enough. Right, let's go cook. So what do we need for our second recipe? We need a bit of smoked salmon. For each person, you really only need one slice, but of course, you can be greedy and add as much as you want. I'm going to use 2 cloves of garlic, lightly crushed, and our rosemary, a bit of chopped parsley, and about 20 grams of butter. Now that's for one portion, but in the descriptions you will see the proportions for 4 portions as well. Let's get started. We'll take a generous amount of butter, put it in there, and we just melt this. Now, while the butter is melting, I'm going to cut my salmon. Some people make this mistake. This is the same mistake that you make with a scrambled egg, in which, salmon scrambled egg is not a scrambled egg that you put a little bit of salmon on top. You need to use the salmon to fry it in order to get all the flavor out. And it's the same thing here. So we need to cut our salmon into pieces. Okay, to make sure we don't burn this. And then fry it. I'm going to keep a few strips for decoration, but most of it is going to go into the hot pan. Okay, that's nice and warm. So that's going to go in here. A bit more, why not? So what's going to happen? What happens here is that the salmon that is inside the butter will give the butter all its flavor. And then we're going to end up with a sauce that tastes deeply of smoked salmon, that doesn't just have that sort of smoked salmon thing floating over the top. All right, so I'm going to add the rosemary in. Oh my God. Okay, that goes in there. And the garlic. I'm going to fish the garlic and the rosemary out of my sauce again later. So this is really just for flavoring. Now I'm adding about 150 ml cream straight to that. And basically your sauce is done. You see the fat that's in there, the butter, how it's not clear, it's already taken on some of the salmon color. Now, the other thing that's very important is that you don't over reduce your sauce, because you don't want a thick, gloopy sauce. You want something that is just coating your pasta. So we can boil that as high as we want. Nothing much will happen to it. You see how the butter is slowly getting incorporated into the sauce. So you are not going to have an oil slick thing on top of your sauce. It's going to be all beautifully incorporated. Don't use a deep pot to do it, because your evaporation is going to be slower and you're going to be waiting a long time before your cream has thickened. Here's another trick. If you find in the end that your sauce has become too thick, all you need to do is just add a little bit more cream to it. You may think that 150 ml cream per portion is a lot, but because you're reducing it and because it's so delicious, it won't be. You'll have noticed that I have not added any salt to this sauce because smoked salmon is salty. So that's what we're going to check now. We need a little bit, just a little bit. So, just a pinch or two. We're almost there. Try again. Wonderful. A little bit more. And that's about where you want to be. You see how it's really still quite liquid. 2 reasons to keep it liquid. The pasta has starch in it and it will thicken your sauce. And also it is now very hot. Once it cools down, it will also become thicker. So the trick is to try and balance it. So once it's on the plate, it's perfect. All right. I'm just going to boil my pasta and we're ready to serve. So our pasta is about ready. Our sauce is cooked. And I'm going to drop this straight into here. I will normally count about 8 to 10 ravioli per person. Of course, if you're very hungry or you're very greedy, you can serve more. Right. It's actually 14. Okay. And we just toss that around. If you're confident enough, you can just, I don't have to clean up too much. So there we go. That's our pasta ready. Let's plate. So what I've plated here is more a starter portion than a full portion. You can just put that in a serving dish and put it on the table, and it will make a wonderful family meal. There we go. The sauce goes all over. What we call the nappage. Try and pick out all the salmon from here. We don't need to be shy with our cream sauce because it's so good, we're going to eat it all. Then just to tell people that it's a salmon pasta, we put just a bit of fresh salmon on there and a little bit of parsley. And I'm going to do one thing that I normally hate. I'm going to put a tiny little sprig of rosemary on it. But I'm only going to do that because I found on the plant this really young and tender sprig, and that will actually be edible. So that goes just here. And there we are. Our pasta is ready. Taste test number 2. Now I can tell you one thing, this already smells so wonderful. Can't wait to tug in. And you see now the sauce is just perfect. Not too thick, not too thin, and oh my god, wonderful. It's unbelievable how, it's unbelievable how that just putting the rosemary into the oil and frying it, it's really infused, and the combination of the rosemary and the smoked salmon is truly great. This can be my lunch. Now if you have a glass of crisp white wine with this, heaven's doors will open. Now if I need to decide whether I like the first one or the second one better, it's a bit of a hard choice. Fortunately, I don't have to choose, I get to eat them both. Well, I hope to see you next time when we're going to be making cultured butter. See you soon.